Welcome back, Shalligators. Aren't we Christmassy? Do you like what I've done with the place? I know. I love Christmas. I mean, I told you guys, I literally dumped the last guy I was dating because he didn't like Christmas and he was robbing me of my Christmas spirit. I sound like some weird character from a Hallmark movie, but it's true. So I hope you guys like this. I hope it's not too much. If it is, who cares? Anyway, speaking of things that are too much, Meghan and Harry. Meghan and motherfucking Harry. These two idiots. The first part of their 3-part documentary has just been released on Netflix. And I tried, really, I did get through it. I did this for you, and I hate you for it because I know you want to see a video on this, and I hate that you do, but I did this. I chose this career path for myself. I have no one to blame but myself. So I'm going to break down the horse shit that I witnessed because you know I don't like them. Well, that's not true. I don't like her. You know what? I wanted to. I did it first because goddamn, some game show girl wheedled a prince. Talk about a Hallmark movie plot. I mean, I wanted her to do a TED Talk and like, hey, here's how you seduce one of the most powerful and well-known people in the world. Here's how I did it. I'd be like, oh my God, I'm taking notes. I love this. Instead, I just told you, I can tell you guys, and we've done a million videos on them where I have told you, and it's all about shadow self and all of this stuff. That's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Meghan Markle's never-ending victim narrative. And we talked a lot about that too. We bring it up every time because it is literally the only thing about her that anyone ever talks about. That is the entirety of her identity, is how she has been wronged. Has she ever seen a movie called Schindler's List? I don't know, just kind of throwing that out there. What do you do when you kind of feel the same way? Now look, we shit all over Meghan here because, like I said, she's a professional victim and there is almost nothing in this world I hate more than people like that. Because what they essentially are is cowards, and they're dressing up their cowardice, their unwillingness to go out and live life, to craft an identity and give something back to the world. They're dressing that piss poor quality up as something we should all admire and pay attention to. Oh, they've just been hurt so bad. Has she? Listen, if you can identify with her, or maybe you're not identifying with her, but maybe you feel stuck in your own sort of victim narrative, that there's something that happened to you, legitimately happened to you, that you just can't get over. How do you do that? How do you compartmentalize things and move on? Well, I'm actually an expert compartmentalizer. And I've only sort of realized this recently, talking with, somebody I was dating about some traumatic things that happened. And it sort of led me down this wormhole of like, how have I done this? So I'm going to tell you how I did it, but we're going to spend a whole lot of time shredding Meghan and Harry. Should we get into it? Fantastic. Oh, but first, since it's a holiday season, and since we're all thinking about one thing, family? No. Baby Jesus? Shopping? Okay, that's better. Just a reminder that if you're still looking for a gift for somebody in your life, we have a restock of our fabulous necklaces with Vault NYC. Ruthless, revenge, warm-blooded, and alpha. So no matter what kind of chick you got in your life, including yourself, you're going to find something that works. So go ahead and get those before they sold out. We made a few extras so that we wouldn't run out before Christmas, but they're going fast. Probably be done by the end of this week. So don't sleep on it. And before we get started, speaking of shopping, just a little word from me from a few days ago when I was thinking about something and I wanted to get it down so that we could talk about it later and kind of talk about it in the comments. Okay, take it away. Hey there, Shalligators. Okay, this isn't an ad. It's just something I wanted to bring up and talk about because we are in the middle of the greatest season, the shopping season, right? Like we're all stressing about Christmas presents and shopping and looking and comparing things online and a million things in our cart. And we also are hearing a lot about like shopping small in local businesses. And maybe you know people who are small business owners. I do. Maybe you are one. Or maybe you drive through your town and you're like, another huge Walmart's going in and it's pushing out the little guys. And it just feels like, how do we even combat that? I can't live my life without sites like Amazon. There's just not any stores here that sell the things that I need. But here's the thing. You can still shop small on sites like Amazon. You just need to look at their tricks that they're trying to pull. Okay, so it's something called self-preferencing. Yes. Okay, this is what Amazon will do. When you go on there and it says, You search like sweaters and it says Amazon's choice for a sweater or humidifier. I always thought that that meant, oh, that's what's popular and that's what's highly rated, or maybe that's what's the cheapest. No, do you know what that means? Amazon owns that brand. Tricky bitches. Amazon owns that brand. So they're promoting their own products. But here's the thing, you can still buy from smaller companies. It's literally so easy. Just click into the item and look at where the company is based. Do a quick Google search of it. And a lot of times on these listings, it will say that they're a small business. Small businesses need those platforms to survive, but it's up to us to just kind of give them a little boost. Because here's the thing with small businesses. And I feel like very strongly about this because I consider myself like a small business owner, kind of, you know, and like I said, you might be also trying to get an Etsy store off the ground or something like that. Small businesses are 64% of new job hires. So they're huge for the economy, but 20% of new businesses fail in the first year. So that's an easy way for you to get the stuff you need, but also be promoting the little guy, you know? It's really crucial to the workforce because otherwise, like, we basically just have monopolies and these huge corporations, and that's not good for the economy. It's not good for us. It's not good for our towns. It's not good for workers. So we're gonna shop small, but we're still gonna get everything done. Okay, that's it. Merry Christmas. Love you guys. Mwah. Can you believe that about Amazon sponsored products? My mind was blown. Anyway, I digress. Harry and Meghan. If I have to see one more time, we want to get our side of the story out there. Who the fuck's else side have we ever heard? Side of what? The side of what? What is this story? What is this story? Like, this is what I don't get. It's like, do you ever have those friends or those people, you know, that they start talking to you and they like start in the middle of a story and you're like, you skipped some chapters here. You skipped a few chapters. That's how I feel with Harry and Meghan. It's like, what story? That you married a prince and you decided to leave the monarchy. Okay. Is there a huge story? It's our turn. It's never been anyone else's turn, Meghan. It has never, ever, ever been anyone else's turn but Meghan Markle's. Tell me one thing that the palace has said in terms of a narrative. I think the only thing they've ever said is like, hey, we wish you luck. This life isn't for everyone. Bonne chance. I mean, as far as I know, that's it. There's no books by them. There's no interviews. There's no documentaries. There's no podcasts. There's nothing. And there has been all of that in triplicate from these two assholes. And so this tells me we're all being bamboozled, right? And listen, I'm going to say up front, anyone who is coming here to say in the comments it's the only reason I don't like her because she's black, she's not. She's mixed. And in fact, I've seen her driver's license. I say this every video because it bears repeating. I've seen it because she was a source at Us Weekly. And that was the same company that owns Star, which I used to work for. And you know what it says on her license? White. She is black when it is convenient. It is a card for her to play. And if you are actually black, and if you have actually grown up with systemic racism and people thinking less of you, and this dumb bitch comes along and hijacks that experience, you should be the angriest of all. This is like me looking at a trans man. Is that even what a trans man is? Someone who's born a man and becomes a woman and acts like, oh, I understand what it's like to be a woman. Sit the fuck down. No, you don't. You can say you understand what it's like to be trans. You don't understand what it's like to be a woman. Not the same. We're not the same. Do not hijack my experience and bandwagon onto that and think that we're equal. We're equal in other ways. We might be intellectually equals, blah, blah, blah. We're not equal in that category, okay? We are not the same. And so again, actual black people should have the biggest problem with Meghan playing that card because it's a hacky job. It's a hack job. It's pathetic. It's so weak and it's so transparent. Miss me. So again, first point, our side of the story. What story? You didn't like your in-laws and so you decided to cut them off? Okay. We've talked a lot about what to do when people are gossiping about you or are spreading false narratives I certainly have had to deal with this, like getting canceled, living in this sort of like YouTube weird space. But if you live in a small town, I guarantee you deal with it too. Everyone dies famous in a small town. Quoth Miranda Lambert, and she is our nation's greatest philosopher. What do? almost always the answer is simply say nothing. And ironically, we're going to loop this back in to the royal family because it was Queen Elizabeth who taught me this. I remember in an episode of The Crown, and I referred to this in the last video we did about Charles and Diana, that the hardest thing in the world, the Queen would say, is to say nothing. The hardest thing in there, the hardest. It is truly, in some ways, the bravest thing. Sometimes standing up and speaking out is brave, obviously, but sometimes to play the long game and to say nothing and give someone enough rope to hang themselves, that takes bravery because it takes self-control. And what is bravery if not self-control? Bravery, as they say, isn't, I'm not afraid of running into that burning building. Bravery is, oh, I'm very afraid and I'm going to do it anyway. I am mastering my emotions. I am gaining control over them and I am doing what needs to be done for the larger good. Whether that's pulling the kittens out of the building or saying nothing and letting this dumb bitch run her mouth and having everyone see sooner rather than later eventually that she's actually the crazy one. And I'm the one who's moved on. We see this with Harry and Meghan in the aristocracy, the monarchy. We see this with our boyfriend's ex. Oh, so he's dating Shallon. What a slut she is. Keep running your mouth, Caitlin. Keep running it. Let's go. Come on. Keep going. Keep going. I look saner and saner and saner, and ironically, more of a victim. Oh, I'm just being attacked. When I say and do nothing. And it's strategy and it sucks, but it is the long game. Meghan didn't get that memo. Meghan doesn't watch this channel. And yeah, I'm focusing on Meghan in this because I absolutely believe she is the architect of Harry's misfortune. And I've said before, because a lot of the comebacks are, his family is so toxic though, they needed to get away from him. That needed to be his choice. That needed to be his choice. Let's be Team Meghan for a minute. Ugh, full body tingles, blah, skin's crawling, just stepping into her shoes. Let's say that that's true. He is scapegoating her, right? He's letting her take the brunt of all of this and only leaving his family once he met her, not standing on his own 2 feet and being a young single man and be like, you know what? I gotta move away from you guys. You guys are so toxic. You're so awful. You're so racist. We'll get to that in a minute. That I gotta go before I meet someone and bring her into this. I'm not gonna put that on the woman that I meet and love. I'm going to do that on my own beforehand. That's what a real man would do. That's what a real man would do. So anyway you slice it, these two have played it fucking wrong. Like they have just, I have never seen a less likable pair. And she seems phony baloney to me. The body language in this documentary, she'll like touch him when he's speaking, but in that way of like, shut up, just shut up, stop talking. Or like touching him to like make sure he doesn't fuck up the way your mom would like kind of like dig her nails into your shoulder when you were talking to a grown up. It's like, that. I'm like, oh, I pick up on that. It's a parent-child dynamic to me. And of course it is, because she has pinged up everything about his mother. Remember how she would wear his mom's, his dead mother, Princess Diana's perfume on their first date? That's some low-down dirty shit. That's some creepy, you're so bizarre. You're so bizarre. That's so weird. But it's effective. I mean, it's effective on weak people. And we've talked about Harry and how really she got her hooks into him and it was all about the shadow self, wasn't it? What is Harry's shadow self? Because he's an excellent example of how to wheedle a man and use his shadow self to your advantage and certainly to his disadvantage. His shadow self is the spare. He even titled his autobiography that. I mean, for me, that was such a moment of personal vindication because I've been saying that this is his shadow self for like 2 years. And I'm like, fantastic. Not going to read it, but I feel good. Think about it. William, the big brother, the heir to the throne, taller, handsome, had more hair, better hair, not red hair. You know, he has none of those things now. But William was a smoke. Like I had a picture of him framed by my bedside when I was like 13. I loved him. Every little girl did. And Harry was like, oh, okay. Do you guys think Charles is Harry's son? No, the opposite. Do you think Harry is Charles's son? I just feel like William and Harry look so different, like their coloring is so different. Like Harry to me looks very Irish and William looks a little maybe more swarthy. Like Charles to me looks more swarthy, a little bit more olive skin. I don't know. Do you think? I know that there's a ton of rumors that Harry is like, who is it? The butler, something like that. Tell me in the comments. I'm sorry, I can't remember. But what do you think? Anyway, it was always the heir, William, and the spare, Harry. He was the little fuck up wearing Nazi uniforms to parties. We'll put a pin in that as well. BRB. And so Meghan comes along and she's like, you're not the spare. You're the true king. You are the one who's going to change the world, not William. You. And here's how you can do it. Through me. I am the perfect excuse. She didn't say that. But she crafted this persona of, I'm so bullied and everyone's so racist. Remember, put a pin in that. That we had to get away from them. And he sees the way to step into the spotlight through her. I mean, really, it was masterful. It really was. Wicked and awful, but masterful nonetheless. Because again, even if his family sucked, that's on him to get away. That's on him to get away. And if I was Meghan marrying into this, and he's like, oh, now that you're here, we got to get away from this family. I'd be like, get your own house in order. Don't drag me into this shit. I mean, this was a big situation in my marriage. Not that my husband's family was toxic, not at all, but like he really bonded with mine and would want to spend certain holidays with us. And his family blamed me. I'm like, I'm the one being like, go be with your family. We're fine. Like, go, take your time. We can spend Christmases apart. I love you. I'll see you at home. It's fine. But I was the one who got blamed for it because I was the new kid on the block. So of course I was responsible for this shift. And it was difficult for us. It was difficult, So I get that. But let's go back to this documentary because there's something I want to touch on. It's my favorite. From an article in the Post. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle defend Netflix trailer using stock footage. Okay. This is something that I read this article before I watched it. Stock footage is something that is put into like Dateline or like Snapped, where you don't have obviously first-person footage of everything. It's like people in a bar and you only see them from like the waist down, right? Or someone like shaking a drink and pouring it. That is stock footage, okay? It's like someone driving through a wheat field, a drone flying over a city, the shoreline, stock footage. It's generic and it's up for grabs. Like you buy into like a photo agency and you can download it. Like you can Google like jars of honey or whatever, like bees, stock footage, okay? This documentary was full of not stock footage, but something called archival footage, which is very different. Archival footage is not meant to be generic. It's from an actual event. This is what happened. Harry and Meghan were saying like, wait, let me see. I have to do the examples. The former royals came under fire when viewers realized that a photo showing them being bombarded by press in the trailer was actually at a Harry Potter premiere that took place years before they met that they weren't even at. Another piece of footage was filmed outside a Katie Price court hearing. Katie Price is a British reality show person. She is a hot mess. I want to be her friend so bad. She's like Courtney Stodden mixed with Paris Hilton, like huge giant tits. She's a mess. Love her. Another piece, Katie Price court hearing, which was used as Harry narrated. I was terrified. I didn't want history to repeat itself. Ostensibly talking about Princess Diana dying. So they're using pictures of like these paparazzi melees, right? Oh, pushing and shoving, camera, And they're saying these are stock images, but they're not. They're archival footage. There's a big difference. This sounds silly, right? This sounds like, all right, like who cares? It matters because they're using something that actually happened that wasn't set up by like a production company where you go and you download it the same way they would take the pictures of the jars of honey or like pan through a bar. Like they are taking actual things that happened and pretending that it happened to them. Do you know what those kinds of people are called? Liars. They're called liars. They're worse than liars. They're catastrophe bandwagoners. They're stolen valor. Isn't that what that is? I'm from New York City. I know a lot of people who were directly affected by September 11th. It was always funny that the hashtag was never forget. Like New Yorkers haven't, like not by a long shot. Like, I mean, living there for so long, like I always met people whose uncle, whose cousin, whose so-and-so was in the towers or friend of a friend. I mean, it was very, very near. And you also inevitably heard about people who faked it, who were like, oh, I was in the towers. Like, no, you might have been in the next few blocks. Like you were close, but you weren't there. And it's one thing to be like 2 subway stops away in distance versus in a tower that's collapsing. Those are not the same things, okay? To me, it's stolen valor. And it's people who are bandwagoning on a catastrophe for a victim narrative. So this was their defense, or their sources close to them is them. You use stock images to tell a story. It's not meant to be literal. It's a documentary. Yes. And again, that wasn't stock footage. It was archival footage because the stock footage wasn't quite dramatic enough. It lacked that real taste, you know? Like, you know, when you're looking at stock footage of people like in Dateline and they're just from here down and they're like yelling and blah, blah, blah. Like, and it's kind of in slow motion, a little fuzzy. You're like, that's stock footage. And you know when it's camera footage and people are like, fuck you, Grady! And they're just like going ballistic. Or like a fight in a movie is very choreographed. An actual street fight, it is a melee. It's absolute mayhem. There's a difference. And these people specifically chose something that was real, but not real to them. And doesn't this all circle back to her entire thing? The racism. Racism is very real. It's not real to you, Meghan. You know what? Let me zip myself back up into the suit of someone who actually gives a shit about Meghan Markle and believes one word that comes out of her mouth. Let us pretend for a moment, okay, that the royal family, totally racist. Let's just go with that. No shit? Can we file that under the no shit category? They colonized Africa, India, most of the world. So marrying into this family, you could reasonably deduce, they're probably racist. If that's uncomfortable for you, why on earth would you marry into them? What pisses me off about Meghan is her stories don't make sense. They don't add up. And she's not ever laboring under the oppressive umbrella of logic and simple argumentation. She isn't. And on one hand, she was going to shake things up. Would you ever marry into a family that you believed hated who you are? Would you ever do that? Like, I would never marry into a family where they thought people who've had an abortion are going to hell. I just wouldn't. I wouldn't want anything to do with them. That's so contrary to my experience as a human being, to what I feel about life and God even. I just wouldn't do that. And I sure as fuck wouldn't think I'm going to change him. I would never do that. You know why? I have a life. I have a life of my own. I'm like, hey, they're a bag of shit. They're crazy as a sack of weasels over there. I'm probably not going to be the one to change them, all of them, and dismantle their family from the inside out if they don't agree. They can disagree with me. I think their opinion is stupid, but whatever, they're entitled to it. So only one of two things can be true. Either she knows all about the royal family and how incredibly racist they are because she passed, 7th grade history and social studies. And she therefore knows who Prince Harry is. But hold on a minute. She said she didn't. Who is this guy we met on Instagram? Who? Or she didn't know anything about them. So are you a fool and a martyr thinking you're going to marry into a super racist family where the guy, Harry, literally dressed up as a Nazi. I mean, that's not good. That's not good, right? And clearly, if you know about this family and you know Harry dressed up as a Nazi, as literally almost everyone does, what would you assume he feels about disenfranchised people? That he maybe doesn't give a fuck? Okay, so you're diving headfirst into that? I know, this guy who like stands Hitler and thinks it was fine that the Jews got killed. Yeah, I think he's gonna love to marry a black chick because I've decided I'm black now. What? Why would you do that? Why? And then why on earth would you be surprised if it turned out exactly that way? I mean, if she should come for anyone in that family about racism, ostensibly, wouldn't it be her husband? I haven't seen Queen Elizabeth dressed up like a Nazi. I haven't seen Prince William in blackface or a Klan hoodie. I've only seen one person in that family making fun of like annihilating another race. And that's the man she married. I don't know. So either she's in that category or she's so incredibly stupid that, again, she didn't pass 7th grade history and she's an idiot. And so she's like, who are these people? Then what the fuck right does she have to lecture anybody about anything ever? Why is she hosting a podcast? Why is she an influencer? Why is she starting a charity? She's an idiot. Well, which one of these things is it? Are you a racist apologist who married a Nazi, or are you a complete simpleton? There's only two roads here, as I see it. I mean, it's one of the two. And again, the only reason these two forks in the road have illuminated themselves and presented themselves is because she won't shut her mouth. My side of the story. Bitch, pick one. Because the only sides of the story are being presented by you and don't add up. They don't make any sense. And I think that's why people don't like her. They might not be able to articulate it, but I think human beings have a good radar of, this doesn't add up to me. And they might not know why. Like, I don't know why she's doing this. Attention. I mean, of course I do. It's attention. Like, she's got a Netflix special. I don't. I'm sitting over here making sense, not marrying Nazis and not trying to dismantle my husband's family and entrenching myself in a lifelong victim narrative where that is all she is. And I asked you guys on Instagram, like, what's the topic here? And one of you, Rachel, hi Rach, said it so right. Compare her to Kamala Harris, our cop of a vice president. Both demonstrate how existing as a person of color is enough to be an activist. It's like you're a professional person of color. Am I a professional white person? What are you talking about? Like, all you have to be is sort of black, maybe just a little overly spray tanned even, who knows, work for Rachel Dolezal. And you're like, and therefore everything you say or do is activism and everything you say or do deserves consideration. The fuck it does. I don't believe that everything a woman says or does deserves consideration. It's about character. Who said that? Was there a guy who's like, I have a dream that one day people will not be judged by the color of their skin, by the content of their character? Was there a guy who said that? I don't know. It's probably Lil Wayne or something. And again, like Meghan, whenever people aren't listening to her, race card, race card, race card, race card, race card. But you married a Nazi. Or someone who thinks Nazis are funny. I will say Nazis are well groomed. They seemed like their uniforms were always pressed and they were always very clean. Funny, not really the word I would use. Wouldn't marry one. No. Okay. She's an idiot and not even sexy. So funny. Knowing, Jessica said this, hi Jess. Knowing when you've won and when to stop. I think this is a really good topic. How to know when you've won. When you did it, you won. You fucking won. Because look, as we have seen, like, people were maybe in her corner. I was in her corner when she first got into monarchy. Like, yeah, she's going to change it up, like some fresh blood. She's American. She's mixed race. Cool. She's divorced. Like, cool, badass. Like, that's great. You know, let's shake it up a little bit. And then I was like, you need to have a little bit of respect for the family you're coming into, for the institution you're coming into. I wouldn't want someone marrying into my family that's 2 people and being like, hey, the way you guys do Christmas Eve is stupid. And maybe racist. Be like, get the fuck out of my house. How dare you? Have a little respect. If this is so awful, why are you here? You knew at some point what you were getting into. Why are you still here? But, like I said, look, before we go any further, actually, I know there's a lot to say about these 2. I don't know, but like, is there at this point? I just feel like we have beaten this dead horse. Where did that expression come from, by the way? It's so dark, so unpleasant. How about we've already taken out the recycling? I need to workshop this a little bit more. I'm so sorry. I feel like we've chewed on this so much. It's like, I don't know what there is to say about these people at this point, but I want to know your thoughts, because God knows there's 2 more fucking parts of this bag of shit. And you know, the overall consensus on this documentary is like, there's no new revelations because nothing actually befell you. And I touched on this the last video we did. The thing that stood out to me out of all the stuff that has come out about them is in a recent book. I'm sorry, I can't remember which. It's like, you know, there's just so much of this. It's like, we're just all drowning in it. When someone from the palace said, you know, we all wanted to make Meghan as happy as possible, but we were sunk from the beginning because she had decided not to be happy. She had decided this narrative before she walked through the door. So nothing we were going to do was ever going to impact that. She had a mission, and it was to be the victim. It's so pathetic. It like honestly makes me nauseous thinking that someone decides to be like that. It just blows my mind in a way I really can't even articulate. So let's move on to the actual topic here. What do you do if you feel like you're stuck in this victim place and you didn't decide to? How do you get out of it? Okay, first of all, I'm going to say something bold here. I'm going to say something. You're going to be mad. You're going to be mad, but hear me out. You are deciding. Because there are people out there who decide not to stay there. And I'm one of them. I'm going to tell you up front that I'm very good at compartmentalizing traumatic things that have happened to me. A college rape, my father's suicide, a kidnapping in Africa. I put it in a jar on my little emotional shelf, and I put it up there. I put it right up on a pretty little shelf, and I don't open it again. Not really. This has many, many benefits, but it has a lot of downsides. I'll keep it 100 with you. It does. I am an angry person. Like I have a temper. I have a bad fucking temper, okay? And it's made even worse by the fact that I'm so good at arguing, because it comes out as, yeah, it's not good. I am critical of others. You know, like there's a lot of downsides to not completely working through things, but I have weighed those downsides with the benefits, and I have chosen to do this. I have a therapist. I'm very aware. I like to be very emotionally aware, and I'll crack the lid on things and I'll like peer inside, but I'm not dumping that shit out all over my life all the time. I'm not. When I start to think about the bad things that have happened to me, I say to myself, change a channel. And I switch what I'm listening to. If like I'm listening to a song, I switch the song. That helps pull me out of the memory. Sometimes I wash my hands or I brush my teeth. You'd be surprised how effective that is. It's like a metaphorical and physical, like fresh start. I will get up and take a walk. Like I will do things to move away from that line of thought, okay? Because I have reached the point where I can see a tipping point between thinking about something and unpacking it and seeing how does it affect my life, and okay, the decisions I'm making aren't because of this thing, it's because of that thing. This fight I'm having with my boyfriend, it's not about the dishwasher liquid that he put in wrong and I told him to use the pods. It's actually something from my childhood. Okay. And I've learned to differentiate when that ends and rumination begins, where I'm chewing on it again and my childhood. And you know what else my mom said to me? Oh, and I remember that time I was 9 and she said I couldn't have a pony. And things just start piling on and piling on and piling on. And suddenly it's all I can see. It's all I can feel. Oh, I said fear, didn't I? Freudian slip. But it's all encompassing. And I know that change occurs when bitterness arrives. That is the cue to me. That's the cue. Because I want to be able to crack the lid on that jar, the rape jar, the suicide jar, the canceling jar, all the jars, and peer inside, be like, okay, I don't like what's in that jar. It smells. I'm going to put and I just want to, I want to look at this jar enough to be like, okay, the reason I'm so aggravated by XYZ that's happening in my life right now is because of what's in this jar. It's like an allergic reaction. Like I take a sniff of it and like, suddenly I'm broken out in emotional hives, all right? And all I want are emotional hives. I mean, that's as far as I want this reaction to go. I don't want to have to get an emotional EpiPen. Has this metaphor gotten away from me? Are you still with me? I'm sorry. I want to be able to see how things connect without letting them get out of control into rumination, into that victim narrative. And for me, it is when bitterness arrives. And how do we know when bitterness arrives? Well, it's when other things, like I said, start coming in. You think about this other thing your mom said and this other thing. But then notice when stuff that has nothing to do with this issue also arrives. And remember how my neighbor hit my mailbox? Fuck that bitch. Fuck you, Linda. And then something else arrives. Yeah, and Kristen at work. Oh, I remember when she put her name on that project and she didn't do that much work in it. And then something else and something else. That's when you're like, okay, hold on. Hold on. This has taken on a life of its own. This has taken on a life of its own. Because boom, here you are in a victim narrative. And look at Meghan Markle. Her stories keep changing. It's one thing after the next. And then I was wearing ripped jeans and I'm a hugger and I hugged Kate and she doesn't like to be hugged. Like, leave her alone. Maybe she doesn't like to be hugged. Like, just that, oh, is it not her body? You know, it's just one thing after the next until it's a snowball. And maybe at the core of what Meghan was feeling or experiencing, what we were feeling or experiencing was valid, but it's taken on a life of its own. And maybe you're already there. You're like, oh, I know. I live my life in this like bitterness bog. I'm just stuck here, sinking more and more every day into bitterness. Okay, let's get practical. When? I want you to keep a bitter journal. I want you to keep a rumination victim narrative journal, the way you would keep a food journal, okay? It doesn't have to be for very long, maybe like a few days. You'll start to see patterns. When are you most likely to get bitter and pissy and just, you're like gripping the steering wheel? Is it when you're driving to work? Okay, all right, let's say it's when you're driving to work. Could it be that you don't like your job and you're feeling this not unnamed angst and frustration? Not that you don't know what it is, but you don't know how to fix that, right? It's like, okay, if I acknowledge I hate my job, I don't like being an electrical engineer, I actually want to be a graphic designer, that seems like a big problem, right? So you're going to switch and you're going to go into your victim narrative about how your boyfriend doesn't, excuse me, I've got the hiccups, how your boyfriend doesn't appreciate you, how your sister takes advantage, whatever it is, fill in the blank. Because on some level, that seems easier, or it's a victim narrative where you don't have to do anything. There's no burden on you to change. Well, that's just how he is, and that's how my dumb sister is. But if you look at what actually is fueling that, why you get so triggered when you're driving to work, onus is on you, isn't it, baby girl? It's no one's fault that you work in that job. Well, it is because my dad wanted me to be an engineer. Okay, well, now I think we've learned something about pleasing other people, haven't we? All right, so what are we going to do about it? Well, it was his fault, so he should do something about it. He should live your life for you. Isn't that why you got here in the first place? Oh! Victim narratives stem from laziness. I'm sorry, but they do. No, Shallon, they stem from trauma and bad things happening. Guess what? Here's a news flash. Bad things happen to everyone. Schindler's List. Actual bad things happen to people. And I'm not saying to, tell yourself your problems don't matter. Your problems are completely valid. They're your problems, And no, maybe you're not living in a hut in Africa or you're not being carted off to Auschwitz. That doesn't mean your problems aren't valid. They absolutely are. But they do mean maybe you need a little little dose of context. A little bit of context, right? A little bit. Part of the reason I can compartmentalize my rape is because I got a little context. You know who else was raped at my college? Kristen Smart. She was also murdered and buried, where did they say, in the backyard? I mean, it's this whole ongoing thing. The dude just got sentenced. Like, it took 20, 25 years. And looking at that helps me move on from that. I'm like, you know what? It could have been worse. It could have been worse. I could have gotten an STD. I could have gotten maimed. He could have broken my jaw. He could have killed me. Is this an ideal circumstance? No. And I'm not trying to downplay anyone else's experience, but for me, getting that context, it does help me. It could have been worse. Getting kidnapped in Africa. Hey, I don't begrudge my kidnappers because it's a really hard life out there. And I don't think that if they had the opportunity to be a Fortune 500 CEO or a hostage taker, they would have chosen the latter. But that was sort of the roads that were offered to some people. And so I try to find a little bit of compassion there, and it helps me compartmentalize it. It helps me make some sense of it. You know? Is that a perfect system? No. But what's our alternative? The victim narrative? No thanks. It's really unpleasant. Like, there's so much to be angry about on a day-to-day basis. The person driving slow, the crock pot that you actually didn't turn on in the morning. A lot of things to piss you off. Why inhabit a place like that? Why inhabit it? So I want you to look, like I said, when do you get triggered by these things? When is this like so infuriating to you? Is it when you're tired? Is it when you're hungry? Is it when you have to deal with something you don't know how to deal with, and so you default to this victim sort of fantasy land? Not that the thing that happened to you is a fantasy. I'm not saying that. But you go into this sort of like metaverse of your victimhood and your pain where you get to complain and complain and complain and chew. Because I know what that feels like. We all know what that feels like. It kind of feels good. It feels like throwing up or crying when you're drunk. You know you shouldn't be doing. You know it's bad, but you're like, you just can't stop. Like, you're getting some emotional payout in that pain metaverse. What is it? I'm not Shallon. Okay, then why are you here? Then why are you watching this video? You're fine. Your relationships are great. You're not stressed. You don't have an inordinately bad temper. You're good. Right? You're good. There's no shame in saying, brother, I am not good. We are far from good. And I don't know what to do. Okay, that's okay. Get curious and not furious. The first thing you got to do is look at the man in the mirror. What are you getting out of this? Is it a card you play to win arguments? Is it a card you play to not go to the gym? I'm dealing with my trauma. I can't go to the gym. Maybe the gym will help. It actually really does usually help with trauma. It's like the first thing they tell you to do. If you have anxiety and rumination, is work out. Work out so hard, your brain kind of shuts off. And that might take a little while. For me, I realize it's 40 minutes. It's a good 30 to 40 minutes before I can actually like, okay, shut my brain off, stop thinking about things, and get in the zone. Which means I have to work out kind of a while. It's very annoying. Try it. What payout are you getting? Get curious, not furious. This isn't about blaming yourself or shaming yourself. It's about diagnosing a problem. I mean, look, if you were dealing with a drug addiction, I think we look at drug addicts or alcoholics and we can very clearly see they're getting something out of staying in this place, out of staying sick. Their mom is doing everything for them. They don't have to deal with like trauma. They don't have to grow up. Like, no, they don't have to be a parent. Nothing's their fault, blah, blah, blah. Like, we can see that, right? There's some sort of psychological itch that's being scratched. You might have an addiction too. And again, this is not to say that what you went through or what you're dealing with doesn't exist. You should be fine with it. Put it in the jar, brush it off. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that there's a huge amount of gray area between I don't even care and I live here. I'm in my metaverse of pain and I live here. There's so much in between. And some days you might be here and some days you might be here. That's all right. That's healing. That's grief. Grief is an ocean and there's waves. Some are big, some are small, but there's always going to be ripples. What you can do is inhabit that space when you're in therapy, when you're working out, when you're working through things, and then put the lid on, put it on the shelf, and deal with it in the appropriate ways. And if that is an incendiary thing to say, if that is triggering for you, holy shit, you've got a problem. Because it's not an incendiary thing to say. It's healthy and it's logical. But people who are in a victim narrative, they're neither one of those things. Look at Meghan Markle. She seems like the unhappiest person in the world. And again, I believe she lacks a little context. I believe she lacks a little historical context, even about the royal families. You know what they do to them? They chop their heads off. It's happened a bunch of times. But no. She's suffered. Can I also say one thing? Because she talks so much about the media being so racist. You know who I used to work for? Star Magazine. Shit-ass publication. People hate on Star. I get it. Let's say that that's true. Let's say that Star is the worst of the worst, hackiest shit, trash bag journalism. I wrote a lot of stories on Meghan Markle. I read a lot of stories that my writers read. None of them were racist. Not even at all about that. You know why? Our readers were white and they didn't care. Like, they didn't want to hear about her race. That was like, just, if nothing else, they wanted to ignore that. You know what our stories would focus on? At the worst. Like, if really we could talk about the worst kinds of stories that Star would write, it would be like body stuff. So-and-so is fat. So-and-so is pregnant, but anorexic, but also fat. Like, it's body thing. It's not race. Like, to white middle America, they literally don't want to hear about it. Even if it's like, oh, look at this black person. They don't want to hear about it at all. Like, even if it's like agreeing with their bizarre racist values, which, please do not paint middle Americans like that. That is not the case, okay? They just don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear about Jewish people. They're like, who are they? Like, it's not a thing. It's not a thing. They want to hear about something that's tangentially relatable. This is the psychology of journalism. So again, Meghan's like, the media is so racist. Well, we were the worst of the media, ostensibly, right? That's what we're saying. We were the worst of the media, and we weren't doing that. So who is it, Vogue? Like, who are you talking about? I guess she's talking about the British media. I don't know, though. Like, and how is that the monarchy's fault? Like, what? There's just so many things that don't make a ton of sense that she says. Anyway, the victim narrative. Get a therapist. Get out of your physical space. Change the channel on the TV. Don't listen to songs that trigger this feeling. Like, I had to stop listening to Taylor Swift's Evermore full stop so that I could get over someone. Like, for a while it felt good, like I was just crying. And then it's like, all right, this is now dark and bringing me back to a place that I'm just sick of being. I'm just sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, you know? And my therapist, when I was in New York, my therapist there, I was being stalked by someone, and it's not funny and it's certainly not flattering. It's terrifying. It's enraging. But I'm like, I'm so anxious. I feel like I can't even go outside. He's like, tough shit, just go. I was like, what? He's like, stop telling yourself that you have to organically feel 100% like doing something in order to do it. Do you 100% want to clean your oven or fold your laundry? No, you do it because it needs to get done. So you need to put going outside, going to Pilates, going to do this in that category. You just zombie walk your ass out the door, girl. Really? He's like, yeah, you just do it. And eventually, you fake it till you make it. And you know what? He was 100% right. I was like, oh, fine. And I thought the same thing. You don't get my pain. You don't even know what this is like. And he's like, I don't have to. I know what pain is like. I may not know this specific flavor of pain, but I know pain. And I know suffering, and I know anxiety, and blah, 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 blah. You're special, but you're not. Other people have suffered. Other people have gone through things. Other people have felt the same emotions you are. Perhaps a different impetus is creating that emotion, but they felt them nonetheless. And here's how they've dealt with it. So just try it. And if you don't want to try it, you're choosing to be like this. You are choosing to be miserable. And you know what that is? That's a big ass win for your stalker. Big high five to her. Because she's got control over you after she's already stopped stalking you. The beat goes on, right? And we look at Meghan and we look at Harry, and it's like, You got out. Shut the fuck up. This was literally 2 years ago. 2 years they've been banging on about this. Go live your life. Go live your life. You're still at the circus. You're still at the circus. Why? Go live. We want our privacy, says the couple who keeps releasing documentaries and podcasts and talking about it. No, you don't. You want to just keep scratching this itch because, again, there is nothing else beneath the surface. They're not doing charities. I mean, are they? I don't know. They're not really talking about it that much. It seems like all they talk about is how victimized they were, right? Are they traveling? Are they like doing any arts and crafts? I don't know. Go to a Color Me Mine, paint a mug. Just try it. This is all they're living for. Okay. Seems like a pretty bad business plan, honestly. So get out of your space. Get out of your head. Go volunteer at a soup kitchen. You know, see people who have problems worse than yours. Because you know what? Your big problem is someone else's lottery win. It is. How could somebody be happy about a divorce? Well, maybe it means that someone loved them once upon a time. And for some people who never have felt love in their life, that would be a big win. You know, maybe it means, oh, there's more in-laws for them to know. Use your brain, stretch it out a little bit. You got this, or you don't got it, and you want to stay here and be miserable. I don't know. I can't help you. I can't save everyone. You got to want it. It's like anything else. You got to want it, and some people don't. But I think if you're in this video, you do. And you know that like, enough is enough. Like this like emotional barf cry, the emotional drunken barf cry was fun for a minute. And now it kind of sucks. And I see the effects it's having, but I don't know how to get out of it. Well, go back and watch this video again. Now you do. Change the channel, get outside, start moving, zombie walk your ass through it. Walk your ass to someplace where people have bigger problems than yours. And I guarantee you can find them. I guarantee. Walk your ass to therapy too. It's great. Therapy's wonderful. You just get to talk about yourself. Who doesn't like that? Let me know your thoughts on Harry and Meghan. Do it. I really don't want to keep covering them. They're so annoying, but I know you guys like the rants. And I hope you like the Christmas decorations. And I hope you shop our Vault NYC necklace collection. And I hope you feel like donating to some of the charities we have linked down below. We've got one for kids. It's Donors Choose. It's funding classrooms and stuff teachers need. We've got another one for dogs that are getting, dogs and cats, being rescued and given medical care in the streets of Venezuela. And also one for jungle animals in Costa Rica, donating to a big wildlife preserve, rescue, and rehab center that I got to visit. And I can tell you firsthand the amazing work they do for tiny animals, adorable snouts. They're great. So if you're in the holiday spirit, and if you want to get out of your victim narrative, honestly, giving back to others is the #1 best way to do it. You know, a little dose of that gratitude goes a really long way in combating the poison of that victimhood and of trauma in general. You know, it teaches you you have something to give this world, and you are something beyond your molestation, your rape, your firing, your cancellation, your divorce, your bad grades. You have so much to give this world, but it's up to you to find what that is. You know, we can't wait for somebody to come along and hand that to us. That'd be great if somebody did, but whoever would hand us that, they own us, and we've come too far to only come this far. You got this. You do. If I can do it, you can do it. I'll see you later, Shallon. I'll see you next time.